November, and today is the opening day of the Social Enterprise Summit 2014. And like last year, we have invited one of the guests of honor, our keynote speaker, to Solution on Wheels, to our mobile studio to share his experience. Today we have Scott Sherman. Welcome to Hong Kong.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And he is the founder of Transformative Action Institute, short form TAI.
Yes.
Which actually, you know the Chinese word Tai Chi?
Oh, yes.
Which is Tai Chi, the first word, Tai. All right, and the Chinese believe that everything that can transform could be fit into the form of Tai Chi.
Nice.
So it will be very interesting to know how, as a Westerner, think about transformative action. Well, let me start off with this question. Is it the first time you come to Hong Kong?
I came here 8 years ago.
Oh.
Yes, I was a professor.
As a professor?
On a ship called Semester at Sea, where we travel around the world.
Ah, all right.
Yes, so this was one of our
that
destinations.
vessel as well. When I was really young, actually.
Really?
Yeah, when I was like that tall. So this is your second time to Hong Kong?
Yes.
All right, and welcome to Hong Kong.
Thank you.
The weather is very nice today.
Yes.
So the next question is the key question. What is transformation and what is transformative action?
Yes.
Is there a difference between these two phrases?
Yes, so transformation it's sort of like the chrysalis of a butterfly. It is not just regular change. It is a complete difference in the state of somebody's being. So that could be personal transformation or that could be social transformation. Now, transformative action is the way we create transformation. So transformation, it's nice to talk about it, but how do we translate that into action? That's what transformative action is about.
Okay.
And so it stems out of my doctoral research looking at when people are trying to make a difference in the world, how do they succeed? Because a lot of people are always trying to do something, but often they're not very effective. And they get frustrated and they get exhausted. And so my research looked at when people are working for human rights, when they're working for economic development, when they're working for public health or the environment, how are they most likely to be successful? Is there a science to social change?
Ah.
Yes.
So normally we would say you need to persevere.
Yes.
In order to transform something.
Yes.
But how can you measure perseverance? I mean, can you do that?
Well, you can actually measure perseverance, but the challenge is that sometimes if somebody's persevering with the wrong strategy, then it can become counterproductive because they're just trying the wrong thing again and again and again.
I see.
And so transformative action is saying there are a new set of strategies that are quite surprising that most people don't know about, but if you use them, even though they're counterintuitive, you'll probably win.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Can you name an example of a counterintuitive strategy?
Yes. So one of them is transforming your enemy into your ally. So very often, you know, in my country, in the United States, we have the Republicans and the Democrats. Yes. People are always fighting. It's always us versus them. We identify an enemy, and then we target them and we try to defeat them.
Speaking of which, the midterms is tomorrow.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
But in reality, the way that you actually get things done is to overcome the us versus them dynamic and realize we're all on the same side. And we're all looking to create a better future together. And so if we're sitting on the same side of the table instead of on opposite sides, then we're more likely to come up with a solution that benefits everyone rather than that benefits one side at the expense of the other.
Well, wait. I mean, it's not difficult to get the attention of your enemy.
Exactly.
Because your enemy is always focusing on you. Otherwise, they won't be your enemy.
Exactly.
But how can you get your enemies to listen to you? I mean, what's the key to that? Listen. How to do that?
The key is to listen to them first. And to empathize and to understand where they come from. Typically, whenever there's a conflict, whether it's in Palestine and Israel or wherever it may be, we demonize our opponents. We say they're unreasonable. We may even say they're evil. And that obviously is counterproductive. I mean, you're not going to win anyone over by telling them that they're bad and wrong.
Okay.
People don't say, thank you for showing me the error of my ways.
Okay, I see. But let me dig deeper.
Okay.
I mean, in order to do that, you have to deal with your emotions, right?
Yes.
Because you have demonized someone for quite some time.
Yes.
And then how can you switch that? How can you switch this part and this part? It's not as easy as that. I mean, what should we do to switch this part and then start to listen to your enemy? What's the skill or what's the trick behind that?
So the first is, I remember a spiritual teacher who once said to one of his students, do you want to be right or do you want to be at peace? And so one of the things that happens is when we're so convinced that we're right, we're very agitated because we think that the enemy is upsetting what is the right thing to do.
Yeah, they're on the wrong side.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So it comes to a point, the beginning of changing here is when you say, I'm tired of always being at war. I'm tired of always fighting. There has to be a better way. But in order for there to be a better way and to find peace, you have to understand where the other side is coming from. So you have to be willing to open your heart and listen. The idea is to say, this other person is reasonable in their head. You know, they think what they're doing is reasonable. For example, I was at a party and somebody came up to me and he knew that my PhD is in environmental studies. And he came to me and he said, global warming is a lie. It's a hoax. It's not true. And I could have said, okay, who's got the PhD? You know, who's the expert in this? And I could have belittled him and said, you're wrong, you're stupid. But I thought to myself, this man is very well educated actually, so I'm curious. How could he, I want to hear his perspective. I genuinely want to know how a thoughtful, intelligent person could think that way. So I did a little like the martial art of Aikido. Instead of fighting him, I went with his energy. Yes.
That's Tai Chi.
Yeah, it is Tai Chi. And I said to him, thank you. Like when he said global warming is a hoax, it's a lie, I said, thank you. Do you think they ever taught me this in my PhD program? I said, I would love to hear your perspective because I'm never exposed to it. I'm always around other people who agree with me. And that threw him off balance because he was expecting a fight.
He was expecting you to go like this?
Yes.
Well, actually, you go like that.
Yes.
And that actually surprised him.
Yes.
Interesting.
And so then when we started talking, it turned out that it wasn't that he really believed that global warming wasn't true. It was more that he thought if the United States took actions to mitigate global warming, it would destroy our economy. So then I started to ask him, well, what is the future that you see for your children and your grandchildren? And when he started talking about that, we actually found a lot of common ground. Nobody wants to live in a world with toxic waste. Nobody wants to live in a world with pollution.
Yep.
And we could start to see that we had a lot of common ground where we could work together towards a better future instead of fighting each other.
Exactly. So that's the thinking and the philosophy behind the Transformative Action Institute?
Yes, yes.
All right. But speaking of action.
Yes.
You are doing your PhD, you are a professor. What makes you found the Institute in the first place? What happened?
It's a great
What's the
question.
action? Yeah.
It's a great question. So when I was 17 years old, I was brutally attacked and almost killed. It was a gang attack, and the way people are initiated into the gang is to kill someone. So I was just an unfortunate person. I was not in a gang. It was my first week of college. And I was with two women. I have no memory of that night, and they've never wanted to talk about it. So, but that is a transformative moment. I mean, that changed my life. Here I was, everything that I believed to be sacred and true came tumbling down. And I wanted to figure out, that my first memory when I regained consciousness was in the emergency room, soaked in blood, with the police officer standing over me saying, we need to call your parents. And I didn't want to call my mother from the emergency room of a hospital and say, here I am, I've just been attacked. And the police said, if you don't call, we have to call. And I certainly didn't want my mother getting a phone call from the police in the middle of the night on a Saturday night. So I started thinking, how can we create a world where no mother has to get that call? How can we create a world where violence is reduced and hopefully eventually eliminated? How can we create a world, and then it went beyond violence to how can we create a world without poverty, without injustice and inequality? And so these were the questions I was wrestling with, and my education in college was all about problems. I could study very much what's going wrong with the world and the extent of poverty, the extent of violence, but very few courses talked about solutions. And like you, I'm interested in solutions journalism.
Thank you.
Yes. So I wanted to know, what can we do about it? And there's a newscaster in the Bay Area who, when the news is full of all gloom and doom and pessimism, he ends his newscast by saying, and if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. So I didn't like my education, and I decided to create my own and started to...
That's interesting.
Yes, I started to create classes where guest speakers who are social entrepreneurs and social innovators, people who are coming up with visionary solutions, they would come and speak in the class, and that was transformative.
But how do you achieve the inner peace after that unfortunate incident? You said your value system tumbling down. How do you rebuild that? How do you do that?
So it was a challenge. It took many years. I mean, for me, mindfulness practice, actually not too different from Tai Chi, was very helpful.
So you have to keep practicing.
Yes.
It's not a one.
No.
Not a one go like this.
No.
So I think what I've learned from you today is two things. I think when we talk about transformative action, we possibly watch too many movies.
Yes.
We just thought that everybody can be transformers and then just do something and then they will be changed. But bearing in mind, actually, the transformers are from outer space.
Exactly.
People on Earth, it takes time.
Yes.
It takes practice.
Yes.
It takes perseverance.
Yes.
And it takes the mindset to gradually transform. And I think that's very important. I think for Hong Kong people, they are always in a rush. They always say they don't have enough time. They always say they are busy. And they actually miss out the chance to transform themselves. So I think by talking to you, we learned actually to transform is actually a process.
Yes.
It may not be a painful process, but it must be a process.
Yes.
And if you can change your mind and your heart, the process will not be painful.
Exactly.
And you can have more allies rather than enemies. So that's key. But how to do that, I actually learned from your body language. If you replay the video just now, you can see how many times Scott do this. This is body language. That's the body language of flourish. It's kind of like a flower. Yes. And it's also a body language of turning a fist into a hand.
Wonderful.
That shake your enemies into friends.
Yes.
And I think that's something that needs to be flourished. And I sincerely appreciate your effort because you're not only talking the talk, you actually walk the walk. You literally is the peace walker.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I think we can learn more from Scott. He is going around town, walk around town.
Yes.
Walk to different universities and spread his ideas about transformative action. And if you want to listen more about Scott, you can go to SOW website, as well as you can go to Education for Good and also the Social Enterprise Summit website. Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to keep you because the audience are waiting. All right, let's go.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Scott.